everyone, this is Desiree Backus with Radiating Waves with November 3 Delta Echo Zulu. Desiree Backus, that's me. And so I want to talk about, for episode 4, about fundraising. I know that's really important for a lot of our clubs and organizations. And so this is a topic that everyone is really interested in and probably is going to be my most watched video. So as this is the case, I want to go over a couple of things. This may be more than one episode. If this gets to be too much, I might break it into 2. So just know that there might be a part 1 and a part 2. I don't really know until I kind of get into it. I want to keep this in bite-sized chunks so it's more manageable for everyone. I will try to make chapters so you guys can jump around or come back when it's convenient to whatever part that resonates with your group most. So for our organizations, the reason why is I have constantly people coming to me asking me, what have I done in the past? Where has that success been? And how do I keep building upon that and keep growing each year, right? So once you have a really stellar year, how do you build upon that? And my very first thing for fundraising that you're going to need to know for your amateur radio group or club is that you need to know your segmentation and you need to know your demographic area that you're going to be working within. So everybody in amateur radio, ARRL has the hardest time because they have the entire nation, right? But for most of us in our clubs and our organizations, we're working in something smaller. So something within our state, within our communities, our local communities, our even, whether that's your county or it could be even in your town or even smaller. You might have several amateur radio operator clubs within your town. So what does that look like for you and what is your demographic that you're working within? And so if you don't know anything about segmentation or demographics, there's a couple of key places that I will send you down a rabbit hole with, and I apologize, but I'll put them down below in the description for you. One is Claritas, and one is Esri. Both groups do free segmentation and demographic information by your zip codes, and you can look them up online. They're both really great sites with tons of information, but it'll give you a really great synopsis of the individuals that are in your zip code. And so if you have several zip codes, like most cities do or most towns do, then you can look at each of those segmentations and how you might tailor your marketing or your communications to those individuals to really resonate with them most, right? So how you're going to resonate with somebody out in the rural areas that may have farms and agriculture might be their focus is going to be totally different than what you're going to do for education and outreach for people that are in the big city, right, of your state, so, or your capital, or that kind of a thing. So how you resonate your communications is also how much you're going to get back, right? So if you're talking to an individual, you're going to be speaking to what resonates within them. If you're talking to a company, you're going to resonate with what is with their corporate, structure and what they're doing. You want to make it advantageous for them. So talk to them about those things. When I was in NASA and I was doing NASA on the air, in order to get people to be interested in our programs, what I did was I went to things that were directly related to amateur radio, right? So first I started with our interns. Here's this group of people that are dying to be a part of NASA. They want to be connected, and they want to be connected to each other. They want to be connected to our missions, our plans, and other people that work at NASA. They're super excited about being there. They have all the energy in the world. So that was kind of where I really started. Was I started reaching out to interns, and interns were great. They loved coming in. They loved working with other people. They loved working with them within the amateur radio scope, but also externally, right? So they were making connections that they could use for their careers and their education and everything else outside that exposed them to people that weren't within their working group structure. So that was a huge. Reaching out to the interns was big. Then I started talking to people that were doing the RF and building our satellites. So all these engineers that were building our satellites and things like that, they were building these satellites, and then they would get done with the satellite would launch, and then there was like this, I'm losing my child, it's going off to college kind of a feeling. And when they realized that they can continue to track it and try to ping it, when it would come around, that we had the technology to do that, and they got into amateur radio quickly. At first, it was just to see their own, things out there and to be able to, track things. But then it segued into other avenues, and then you saw them branching out into radio astronomy, or you saw them reaching out to, helping the interns, or, doing all these things, or helping us do our DIY builds for, activities, or they were coming up with ideas for us to, make and take things, and, that kind of a thing. And so that really resonated with them. For our IT security, it was really great to have them come apart and be a part of it, because then they could see how we were, not putting their stuff in jeopardy or at risk, and how we were still able to do community outreach and, safely and all this fun stuff. So it depends on who you're speaking to. That's how you're going to craft your stuff. So knowing your demographic and your segmentation of who your target is important, right? And so even when your target is a younger audience versus an older audience, which we have those demographics within the amateur radio community, but I strongly encourage you to not forget that middle ground, right? It seems like the middle ground always gets forgotten, right? Children, yes, we want them. We're going to pull you into robotics or into amateur radio for STEM education. And the older demographic, we're going to grab you because you're going to be, getting retired, and you've got all this wealth of experience and everything else that you could really help us. But what about that middle ground, right? The 30, 40, 50-year-olds that we want to capture and bring into amateur radio too. So, how do we get them in, and how do we cultivate them into amateur radio? So we need to think about them too, as far as demographics and how we're going to grab them, and what are their interests, and where do we find them, and how do we engage them, and that kind of stuff. So knowing your graphics and your demographics and your segmentation, that's really, really important. So just a little bit of free education online will help you really craft that communication to go forward for your finances and going forward. Right? So doing a little bit of homework. And then you need to prove your worth to those people. So if you're going to ask them for money, what do you do in order to say that you're worthy of their donation? How are you serving the community? How are you, doing those things? What value do you bring as a club and an organization that they will want to invest in? So make sure that you craft that story. Start with a brainstorming session. That's what I always did. Because it's hard for you to remember all the little pieces of what you do. But when you get together at your club meeting and you say, hey, what have we done? What is the value that we bring? All these different things start coming up, right? And different people think that the value that you bring comes from this or it comes from that. It's different, diverse things and stories. So something that maybe wouldn't even resonated with me or really sat with me because it's just something that we've done for years and years and years. It really resonated with Joe, and so Joe's going to bring that up at that meeting. And so when you get together in a brainstorming session, you could have a piece of paper or a whiteboard or some butcher paper on the table that everyone's writing things down, right? And so that way it's a little bit easier to capture, and then that's easier for you to communicate that in your stuff. You may not want to capture it all, but that will help you craft your message. So definitely know that the worth that you bring and figure that out. That's going to be an important part of your communications for soliciting information. And then know your face ratio, and that's your cost per the money that you're going to be spending out as compared to what you're going to get back, right? So on average, it's 24 cents to the dollar. So if you invest 24 cents, you're going to get $1 back in donations. So how much is your organization willing to spend? And because we're amateur radio, it's going to be even lower than that. I would say half of that, right? So if you're going to do some kind of investment to get money back, let's say you're going to do, you're going to make challenge coins, and you're going to donate that out. How much are you going to get back in value for your efforts being put out? There's going to be a cost involved. Are you going to get stickers with your logo and your to publicize your club and everything else and your organization out into the world? And will people at your events then pay for it, and what will they pay for it? So and who's going to do that? It's mainly going to be your members, right? So if you're going to use t-shirt sales in order to get you guys some revenue, you know, what's the cost of getting the t-shirts made, and how much then do you have to sell them in order to make any kind of profit? So just know that that's kind of face ratio you kind of need to know, right? And is it really worth it? So a lot of people say, no, we can't afford that, right? We don't have anything over basic, you know, what we need in order to run the organization. We don't have a lot to invest, and that's okay. Truly, it's okay. So just know that if you are going to put money out, don't be spending money hand over fist that you're not going to get back, because that's counterintuitive to the fundraising, you know, efforts that you're doing. So that's the only reason that I bring that up. Know your target. How much are you guys needing to raise, right? So how much does it cost you to run your organization or do this campaign or do whatever? And how much do you need each year in order to sustain you? What is your goal, right? If you don't know what your goal is, it's hard to reach for that goal. And so that's important, and that's important to go over with your finance person or your, you know, that kind of whatever that is. You're right. Your financial officer for your club or things like that. Know what cost is involved and what are you raising it for. So are you doing it for general funds to keep your club going and active each year, or are you doing it to be able to send your group on a vacation together? Are you trying to fund, you know, for scholarships for the youth in your community in order to get amateur radio license, and your guys' club is providing that for them? You know, what is it that you are raising, and how much funds do you need? So know your target. The next thing is to amplify your similarities. So whoever you are targeting for your stuff, again, I've kind of said this before, but this is really important. That's why it's its own bullet. And that is to amplify the similarities from the person that you're asking for the money from, or the organization that you're asking the money from. If you want them to support you and give you a donation, how do you connect yourself to them? What are the similarities between you? Are you both working for the greater good? Are you both working for emergency preparedness? Is it all because you want to make sure that there's communication? Is it because you're both into DXing? Is it because you're both into rag chewing? Are you really into the nets and the connections that you have within your community? You know, is that, you know, what are those connections when you're asking a person or an organization to sponsor your club or your group with finances? You need to amplify the similarities between the two. So that's really interesting. The other thing that's really important with fundraising is you physically have to ask. So if you're fundraising or your marketing or your communications PR person that's doing this outreach or that's writing your guys' stuff, if you're very, very vague about, you know, oh, well, we have this website and if you want to donate, you can, you know, that kind of a thing. If it's wishy-washy, no one's going to donate. They're not going to do it. Not even your membership. So you have to make the ask, and that's uncomfortable, but I'm telling you, if you ask, you're going to get 70% more engagement than what you will when you don't, right? So, and then for our demographic in amateur radio, it's really more educated and kind of people, usually really intelligent people get into amateur radio. And you know, I don't think you have to be truly brilliant in order to get into amateur radio, but I think that's what draws a lot of people to it, right? It's that education, learning, engagement kind of a thing. So in order to engage with them, they like to have both sides of that coin, right? So what do we need it for? And what will happen if we don't get it? So I'm asking for $5,000 this year because we need to upgrade our existing, infrastructure for our repeater systems. And if we do not, then this repeater and that repeater will not be able to be online next year, which means there will be no coverage in this area covering this city and that kind of a thing. If I'm asking you for $1,000 because we need to pay our electric bill for our club at our Radio Shack. If that is the case and we don't raise these funds, then in the summer when we're doing field day and it's 110 degrees out and we have all of the things, we won't have a cooling station for our visitors and our guests or for our membership in order to be able to come inside and have a restful place in order to get back out there and do rotations. What does that look like? What will happen? What are you asking for? And what will happen when you don't get it? Right? So that's that kind of juxtaposed thing that really works for fundraising. And so if you're reaching out to a corporation or a thing, we need this money so we can continue to do STEM education and outreach within our community for our youth. If we do not, then Jamboree on the Air won't happen, and this is how many Boy Scouts or whatever that go to Jamboree on the Air each year, and we won't be able to offer scholarships that help get them into technology fields, and the company that I'm asking for the money or the support from is a technology or company, right? So those kind of things. You can also talk about how many operators in your organization work at, whatever company it is in your local community or things like that. So how do you connect to them? That's very vitally important. And then the juxtapose yay and nay, right? So that is a communication piece that's really important with our kind of education demographic. The other thing is about selfless giving, right? The public good, the tangible rewards, the warm glow effect of serving in your community. All those things could be amplified when doing that. Also, obviously, we know that a lot of fundraising activity also focuses on sympathy and empathy within your communities, right? So in the state of Colorado, we need funding because we want to support every community, and our geographical location is full of peaks and valleys. And so Arden Network and the Arden Mesh Network wouldn't work out here because we don't have flat ground, right? We're not the farm community of the breadbasket or things like that where we could get line of sight very easily. So we want to make sure that we have emergency preparedness, secondary communications abilities up and running for all of our rural communities that are in those peaks and valleys. And when a fire happens, we want to make sure that that communication could be easily maintained and that they have every avenue of knowing information, up-to-date information, like the rest of us in our metropolitan areas. So, that kind of a thing. That's how you're educating people and still playing on the empathy of knowing that, yes, those communities are vital to us as well, and that they would then help to support maintaining your operations in order to keep that, right? So I'm not saying what bleeds leads, but if you have something that happens in your community, like there was a fire main break or, a water main break or something like that, then you could talk about how you've supported that. And that is also empathy, right? What if there was nobody there to help support those, efforts, that kind of a thing. And you could talk about things that have happened in nearby communities where your base may have been exposed or could, know about those kind of things. So think about the selfless giving and amplifying that in your messaging. Also, your emotions, the emotions that drive your demographics and your segmentation. In amateur radio, what I find is a lot of people are driven by the emotion of, for fundraising is for your self-respect, for your self-fulfillment, for your accomplishments that you are doing. Think about all the awards and things that we do. For fun, people get together for fun. Think about field day, right? Is it about the contesting, or is it about camaraderie and the getting together? It's about fun too. So that's also part of your messaging. What is the emotions that you're going to put into your communications in order to solicit funds to back your request, right? Being respected in our community is a emotion that we a lot of times rely upon or lean into. Our enjoyment, we lean into, is this really enjoyable? I know it is for me. And so I love going to the fests, and I love going to the conventions, and I love doing amateur radio because it's enjoying. I enjoy it. I enjoy that connection and things like that. The excitement of making a connection that you have never made that far, or having, something like that, the excitement of getting my parents into amateur radio, the excitement of seeing my kids take a test, the excitement of, exposing Girl Scouts to it and then seeing them want to get their license, the pride of it all. What are the emotions that are the drivers? Incorporate that into your messaging and you'll go far, right? The relationships, the belonging, the security, those are all emotions. And so amplify those, and that will help you in your fundraising campaigns. The next thing is use concrete language. See, what you feel, what you hear. Those are concrete things. So use that kind of language in crafting your message, and that is going to resonate with people that you're soliciting for the funds. And that's not very hard to do. I see, 10% of the children that I do outreach for the STEM education through ERIS want to then get their amateur radio license or want to continue to learn about the lesson plans and do engagement activities, right? They want to come to our DIY events and things like that, our maker nights and things like that. So that kind of a, thing. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Those kind of things. Those are the concrete language that is the messaging that you want to put forward when you're doing a fundraising campaign. The next thing is your collective culture, right? What is the group goals, again? And what is your value that you guys bring? What is the traditions that you guys have? What are those kind of things that you bring into your social security with that group, the social uniformity that happens within that group? All those things, if you use that to weave into the fabric of your messaging, that is going to help resonate, right? So again, it could be short little 2-sentence blurbs out on social media, or it could be longer, or it could be an email that you're sending out to people. All these little things added into those messages, not into every message, but to add into your campaign over the length of your campaign will help you generate bigger funds for your fundraising campaigns. Okay, so we talked about that two-sided messaging, the yes and the no, the this will happen or this won't happen. This is, if we get this money, we could then grow, and this is how many people it would support. We could do X, Y, and Z if we got this piece of equipment. Whatever it is that you're looking for, that's the two-sided coin that you need to share with people in order to get that. And then make the case bigger than the organization and relate to the cause being served. So if you connect it to amateur radio as a whole, right? So not just your organization, how does that work to help to amplify your messaging? So if we are a repeater system and we're talking about collaboration and how we have a lot of partnerships with other clubs and other repeater organizations in order to have an entire network and a backbone that supports 3 different states, right? If we're doing that, how does that then amplify to the bigger community? Well, we want to show you that partnerships with other groups is not as contentious as it needs to be. It makes it better for the entire community. So we don't want to just use that here in our state. We want to amplify that so somebody else within amateur radio, maybe that'll work out in X, Y, and Z states, right? We want to see if it'll happen in your communities, in your states, in your divisions. Can you use the same model there, right? And so that's how you connect it to the bigger scope and the bigger group. And then you'll also have more buy-in and more support, right? So to whoever you're soliciting funds from, try to connect it to a higher standard, right? Bigger than you, bigger than your organization, bigger than your club. How does it connect to amateur radio as a whole, right? If you have to reach back to the ARRL and look at their website and everything that they do for amateur radio, right? That's another way of connecting it, right? Our amateur radio operators, by keeping this club up and it's a ARRL supported event, we help educate and promote amateur radio within, through ARRL, through the United States of America, that kind of a thing. Our memberships as a supportive club that we put forward helps to, promote and secure our regulatory legislation that's going through on X, Y, and Z that they're doing, right? How do you connect to that, right? And so connected to the bigger, broader picture, it's a lot easier. When you are the ARRL, their broader picture would probably be the international community and how are they, a partner with that and how are they doing those kind of things. So remember, there's always something bigger and it gets harder as you get larger. But for our communities, for our clubs, for our, organizations that we have, always look to the next tier up and how do you connect to them, okay, in your community. So that's important. And then raise public awareness for larger issues. So another one that's really important that we do with ARES, when we connect ARES and the emergency preparedness stuff to natural disasters, right? You can reach out to NASA or NOAA's pages, websites and pages. They have tons of education on how many big natural disasters have happened within the previous years. How do you connect that data to what you provide and you serve in your communities? So reach out to those kind of things and use those in order to say, hey, we have go kits, or we have these kind of things, or we do antenna shootout things, so that people know how to test their antennas or use an antenna analyzer, or we bring out the oscilloscopes and we look at, whatever. And so how do you connect that to things that are happening bigger in the community or things like that? So raise public awareness of larger issues, like natural disasters in your area, the risk of fires, things like that. And so by doing that in your fundraising campaigns, it will also help you generate more funds for whatever it is that you're trying to raise the funds for. And then direct, transparent response. So use customer information to develop ongoing relationships with each individual. So if you have a group of individuals that consistently give you money for your campaigns, like let's say we have a certain company that constantly gives us funds or corporate match donorship or things like that, make sure that you're going back and develop those relationships and keep those relationships for next year. So if Susan gave you $10 this year for your fundraising campaign, make sure that one, you go back and you send a thank you, whether that's a generated email that comes from your fundraising campaign website, or if it's your club and your club secretary sends a post-it note that says, thank you so much for supporting us, we really appreciate it, blah blah blah. When are you going to reach back to Susan? Are you going to reach back to Susan at your next fundraising campaign to say, hey Susan, you donated last year, can you please donate again? I'm not saying that that's not important, and that will also help you generate things, but you should also be talking to Susan at Christmas and saying, hey Susan, thanks so much for supporting us. We hope you have a wonderful Christmas. This is what we're doing this year for our festivities and our membership and blah, 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 right? What are we doing to reach back and cultivate and maintain the relationships of those that are supporting our organizations? If that is DX Engineering and they have donated, or ICOM and they have donated, equipment for your, door prize drawings at your festival, how are you cultivating that relationship throughout the year? And is it only when you want something or need something? That will help generate funds for years to come. And so cultivate your relationships within your communities. That helps immensely. The other thing is we are constantly hitting the same demographics year after year. And this is probably the biggest part of this whole episode that you guys need to kind of think about. Think about what the opportunities are in the untapped markets or new markets that you haven't exposed yourself to or tried to reach out to because it just never occurred to you, right? So can you partner with the elementary school and, can you do a fundraiser where the kids all bring pennies for amateur radio operators and, that kind of a thing, and how that works for emergency preparedness and things like that. And how does that resonate for, getting vests or goggles or, gloves or, that kind of thing? Are you teaching them how to save and prepare and doing all these things? Are you working with your CERT groups? Are your amateur radio groups working with your CERT groups by going in and teaching a half day of amateur radio to the community emergency response teams in your area? Are you reaching out to what are we doing in order to solicit new groups or new areas that we haven't thought of before? What is not, are we reaching out to your overlanding groups, which is camping kind of with your vehicles? Are you reaching out to camping membership groups? Are you reaching out to your field and stream groups? Are you reaching out to the groups that are doing hunting and fishing and that kind of thing? Whitewater rafting, we have a lot of here in Colorado. But look at your area and your demographic and how do you connect amateur radio to those communities, right? So if I was a whitewater rafting group that was doing that, would they want amateur radio operators to be, a midpoint check-in or something to make sure that everybody and all of the boats are doing well? But if there was an emergency, how would they get communications to get, assistance? That kind of a thing. What could we do as an amateur radio group in order to support other groups that we haven't? And then use that as a springboard into that community in order to solicit new funds, right? So that kind of a thing. Are you reaching out to companies in your area? Let's say you have, JB Hunt has a huge cannery in your community, and are you going to JB Hunt and asking them if what the interest might be for standing up amateur radio in their organization, and are you aiding them to do that? So then now all of a sudden you have a whole new demographic that we're reaching out to for fundraising. including JB Hunt, right? So, that kind of a thing, corporate sponsorships. And you don't have to ask a corporate sponsorship, hey, give me $5,000. We need $5,000 in order to keep our club running. You can say, hey, would you be willing to do a matching donation for $2,500? If we can get community engagement from that, would you then match that to help solicit us? Are you working with your state and federal annual campaigns? They have fundraising campaigns like the combined, campaign where they have all their donations on a list. Are you on that list? Especially if you're a nonprofit organization, you should be working about getting on those lists. Each state has one. The federal government has them. So as a federal officer or a federal civil servant or a state servant that works for the state, we can put in our donations for the year. Are you in that drop down? Are you an option on that list? Get on those lists. And so do you need to do a crowd-sourced fundraising thing for something that's happened? Did your generator go out, or did you want to get a con trailer, built in your area? Those are kind of things that you guys can do in order to increase or try those things. Another thing that you can do in your communities is partner with local restaurants, where you can have the community come in and they will eat their normal dinner, and you get 10% of that fund for that evening for your funds, right? If all of your membership went to, whatever fast food organization or sit down restaurant or whatever it is, go to those organizations and see if they'll match those. That's another easy, fun way, one, to get membership engagement, but also to get that kickback to your organization. If you want to do something fun like a chili cook-off for your area or your community, you do a chili cook-off. All of the clubs do the chili cook-off and sell the bowls for the chili, at $3 per, bowl or whatever, and they can go around and check it off, and then, and then give a gift or a prize giveaway at the end, that kind of thing. What can you do in order to generate funds that could be fun and engaging, not just for your membership, but also pay dividends back, right? So if you're going to do the chili cook-off, again, I'm going back to that face ratio where you know how much you're going to invest in that kind of a event and how much you're going to get back from that kind of event. So you know how much that you need to charge for food and drinks and, that kind of a thing. Do you have people in your group or within your community that would be willing to do a charity fundraiser concert? And can you charge tickets for that for, $3 or $4, and have everyone bring their lawn chairs out and do that kind of a thing? Can children in your group or the young individuals in your group, can they sell popcorn at a movie night? Can you play movies that have amateur radio in them, like Contact or something like that, out on your lawn? What can you do in order to do these things? There's tons of ways in order to gain engagement within your communities. Even if it's just within the older, younger, like interns, right? How are we going to get them engaged, and how are we going to do that, and how can we generate some funds? Whether they're the ones selling the stuff or helping us, put on an event that draws in the greater community, then we do that, right? Ask the Girl Scouts if they want to come, and, that kind of a thing. So think outside of your box and think about targeting groups that are outside of your norm, right? Don't just ask your membership to generate the funds from their membership dues. If you reach outside of our organizations and we do something fun and engaging with the community will help support us and fund our organizations. But it can't be at the very last second, and you have to build those relationships. So start today. That would be my first thing. Start today and get you guys out there. A lot of organizations or clubs do not have club shirts or things like that when they get out into the community. But the thing about marketing your brand for your organization is when people see everyone's gray San Benito hats, or everyone sees, they're like, oh, there's this recognition within the community that I've seen that before. What is that group? Why are they always at the park? What is, the purple shirts? What are they doing? Why are they always at, all of the community things? Is that what is that? And so it draws interest and things like that. Even if you just make one simple banner and people don't have jackets or shirts or hats or, anything else, if everyone wears blue, royal blue is going to be your color, or everyone's going to wear red, right? Red is going to be your color. Just wear a red shirt and come out to, this field day event. Yellow's our thing, whatever it is, pick a color, pick a brand, pick a thing. And then when you do your community outreach events or your fun events, incorporate those colors every time you go out, and it will generate interest, right? Get a banner made. They're relatively inexpensive. You can get them made. A DIY, banner, have kids paint them on a thing or whatever, but get your things out there, whatever that is, and start that recognition today, right? So a lot of us really lean into our call signs and things like that, and we have shirts or hats with our call signs on it. I would encourage you to think about that same self-branding that we do, and using that to amplify our clubs and our organizations in order to engage more people in amateur radio, and to also generate more funds for us, for our groups and our organizations, in order to grow that, right? What value do we bring? How do we amplify that? And how does that connect to the people that we're asking for the support from? So all these things are really important when you craft your message. I will have plenty of ideas and everything else for us for more engagement within our communities, ideas for, what things could we do within our clubs in order to, have more cohesiveness and more connection and things like that. That'll be another episode. So keep that in mind. If you guys have any, again, suggestions that I missed for this fundraising episode 4, please add them in the comments, and let's have a discussion. Feel free to contact me. I am out on QRZ. You can find me there, but contact me. My information's out there. N3DEZ at ARRL.net. Shoot me an email. Let's chat. I would love to. Obviously, I'm a talker, so that happens in this organization and in this hobby. So give me a call, and hope to see you on the airwaves. Bye, everyone.